Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your professional effectiveness in the area of sales, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Shawna Suckow. Shawna has been speaking professionally for over 5 years, and the primary content that she speaks on is sales from a buyer's perspective. She has spoken both nationally and internationally, including 5 continents, and is based out of Minnesota. She has a new book coming out in January called Hi, I'm Your Prospect. Shawna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
And we're really glad to have you, Shawna. I'd like to kick off the show by asking you if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your speaking business and how you help salespeople become more effective.
Sure. Well, my speaking business kind of was created organically because I've been a $1 million buyer on the B2B side for over 20 years. And like you said, about 5 years ago, I started being asked to speak because I wrote a book back then on what buyers really want and what their pet peeves are. And it kind of threw me into the limelight. And I hated public speaking back then. I hated it. I never wanted to do it. But I said, yes, I'll be helpful. And then the more I did it, I realized, okay, I really like this. And so it was about 5 years ago that I went professional, I would say. And so since then, I've helped salespeople all over the world to understand why, I call us the buyer species, so why our crazy species behaves the way that we do, and why we buy, when we do, and how we buy, and what our pet peeves are. And the most incredible thing is the timing has been really interesting because there's been a huge shift in buyer behavior in just the past 3 years since we came out of the recession. So it's really an interesting time to be both a buyer and a seller.
So what are some of the key challenges that salespeople have in interacting with buyers, and what advice do you give them to help them through that?
Oh my goodness, so many challenges these days, because mainly salespeople, I call it insanity 2.0. Insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting differently. Well, insanity 2.0 is selling the way that you used to sell 5 years ago and expecting it to work today. And it's frustrating salespeople all over the world because they're saying, there must be something wrong with me because, all this stuff's not working, and I know it's a quote-unquote numbers game, and I just have to do more of it. And so even though it's a seller's market in a lot of industries right now, there's frustration because those tools aren't working anymore, and salespeople are beating themselves up, working harder when just a couple shifts they can work smarter. And one of my biggest thing, if I could just kill the cold call, everybody would be happier, because I know a lot of salespeople hate to do it, and buyers certainly hate it. They, if you think of yourself as a customer in your own house, if somebody calls you on the phone, you know who's calling. You know it's not somebody that you know or that you want to talk to, so you just let it go to voicemail. And you never call back the carpet cleaning salesman who just cold called you. You just don't. And so consumer behavior is a lot like business buyer behavior. We've got technology to keep you at arm's length until we have a need. And so, my research has shown that 96% of your cold calling time is wasted. And the other 4% is even questionable because buyers just don't accept the call. And if they do, they're just being polite and telling you to, call back in a year. And if you leave a voicemail, they never return those calls. So it's shifts like that, like, okay, what can you do with all that time that you used to spend cold calling and be a lot more effective? There are tons of tools out there that are more effective for salespeople today.
So I mean, that's very interesting because, you know, cold calling is still pushed in a lot of organizations. And I personally understand the extent to its ineffectiveness. But at the same time, there's still billions and billions of dollars that are generated from that. So it's kind of hard to, get the management or get the senior drivers, leaders off of that bottle because it's still so much juice there.
Well, there's two things that I'll comment on there. And the first thing is, the managers are the ones that are saying, do the cold call, do the cold call, because likely those managers haven't been on the front line since cold calling used to work. And so they see it as a perfectly fine tool. And it works for me, it should work for you. And if it's not working for you, it must be your fault. Do more of it. Hit those numbers, hit the numbers. But all over the world, I've taken surveys, and 96% is the number of calls out of 100 that go to voicemail. And when I ask salespeople how many of those 96 call you back, the answer is almost always 0. And so I believe that, if it's attributed to cold calling, it's probably not just cold calling that built that relationship. The salesperson cold called, but then they had to get creative and do a lot of other things to actually get that buyer in front of them. The cold call, probably barely even planted a seed, but then the salesperson had to get creative and think of other ways to get in touch with the buyer. And I think it's those other ways that probably really planted the seed, because the cold calling is just, the cold calling is interruption marketing, and interruption marketing doesn't work anymore. It's relationship economy, and it's, the interruptions are beyond annoying these days. And if you think, oh, well, I'll just keep leaving them a voicemail once a month for a year, it's not helping you. It's annoying your customer further and further. So, it's a tough time to be a salesperson these days.
And then you mentioned another key point is relationship building, and the dynamics of that has changed as well. We used to have a lot of face-to-face interactions. Now everything is online, social media, and the engagement now is liking someone's page or something like that is sometimes as close as you can get to a person.
Yeah, it's LinkedIn is still, although LinkedIn hit its peak effectiveness, I believe, in the past few years, it's still, I think, the number one prospecting technology. And connecting with someone on LinkedIn and starting a conversation that's not immediately a sales pitch is one of the best tools that a salesperson can put in their arsenal. And believe it or not, traditional mail is coming back, which is astounding because, with the whole green and sustainability movement, it really went away and it was taboo to send mailers. Well, now it's ironic, but we get so little mail these days that mailers, if done right, and that's a big if, really stand up to it. It's weird. It's what's old is new again, and then in some cases, like the mail. But still connecting socially is great. I know it scares a lot of salespeople, especially of older generations. They say, I don't want to do Twitter, or I don't want to do this or that. But I just say pick one, and just pick one. Pick LinkedIn is going to be the easiest, and just get comfortable, learn how to use it. There are plenty of classes or people who can help you out there to use it the right way. And, just pick one and don't overwhelm yourself.
So I really love the fact, the concept of a person who was in the buying industry on a large scale, multi-million-dollar buyer, providing tips and strategies to salespeople. As someone who has a sales business development background myself, I can really appreciate that. What are some popular misconceptions about the services that you provide to your clients, and how do you dispel those?
Popular misconceptions about what I provide, unfortunately, it's the manager who has to hire me, The salespeople, the frontline people, if they come to like a conference where I'm speaking, they'll say, please contact my manager. We need you. We need you to come speak to my organization. But it's the manager, typically, like I said, that one that hasn't been on the front line in a while, that says everything's fine, especially when it's a seller's market and all boats are rising. But man, there's so much more you could be capturing if you're just not wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and buyers are putting up walls like never before to keep salespeople out. And so it's learning how to get around the wall, because you can't get over it anymore the traditional way. You got to figure out how to get around it and form those relationships in new ways. Let me give you another example. Skype is, I think, one of the most fantastic and underutilized sales tools that's out there right now, because, as you said, it's getting harder and harder to get face-to-face with the buyers. Skype is face-to-face. It's just over a screen, but it's still face-to-face. You're still looking someone in the eye and seeing their mannerisms and establishing rapport with each other, so much more than a phone call or even a LinkedIn connection, communication, etc. But nobody's using it. I made a multi-million-dollar decision. I put two salespeople up against each other to give me a sales tour via Skype. And one of them was totally flustered by it and sent me a virtual tour that was canned, like pre-recorded tour. I said, yeah, they're not hearing me. They're not listening to me. They're not, we don't trust virtual pre-recorded, think about when you're buying a house. You trust those pristine photos, or do you want to walk through it yourself?
Right, walk through.
You want to walk through it yourself, but what if you're out of space and you can't do that? The next best thing is to have the real estate broker walk you through, via Skype or FaceTime or whatever, with his or her iPad, and actually show you around the house. So this wasn't a house I was buying, but the other salesperson did just that and had a whole team waiting for me for this Skype tour, the general manager, director of sales, the salesperson, and they gave the most wonderful tour. And I said sold without stepping foot.
Wow.
Never having met them face to face.
Wow.
And it's changing the way that you can access your customers.
It makes a lot of sense. I'm a Skype user, but I've never actually thought Skype business strategy or sales strategy. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your book that's going to be coming out in January, I believe, called Hi, I'm Your Prospect. What are some of the elements contained in that?
Well, it was interesting. I wrote a blog post on LinkedIn. It's called LinkedIn Pulse, where you can blog to the public. And I wrote a post called Hi, I'm Your Prospect. This is what I want to see on your LinkedIn profile, or something like that. And it blew up, and I thought, okay, there's something to this. And so talking from the prospect's perspective, I don't think has been done. And so I thought, I really need to just pull the curtain back and give these salespeople all of these prospecting ideas from the prospectee themselves. And so I'm interviewing a lot of fellow buyers and gathering research, and I'm about halfway through writing it right now, and so it will be done and published and ready in January.
Wow! Now,
secrets of the buyer species.
Okay, awesome. Now, unfortunately, we are almost out of time. It's amazing how fast time flies when we've got such great content on. But this is what I'd like for you to do with the last 60 seconds. If you could convey one thought, concept, or idea to the listeners, so that if they don't get anything else out of this interview, this is what I want to leave them with. What would that be?
What I want to leave them with is, don't be overwhelmed thinking you have to change everything you're doing. Just pick one thing. Try the Skype call, or try LinkedIn, or, try just one thing. And if that works for you, then maybe you'll believe me a little bit more and try another thing, and then another thing. And changing overnight is not a good idea. It's gradual, and prove to yourself that it works, and then stick another toe deeper in the water.
Very, very good advice. Now, finally, if the listeners would like to learn more about your business and possibly engage with you to learn how to improve their sales effectiveness, what's the best way for them to do that?
That is easy. They can go to my website, which is shawnasuckow.com, or they can email me, info@shawnasuckow.com. I'd love to hear from anybody.
Great. Well, Shawna, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was very valuable information that you provided to us and the listeners, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Constance, and I'm sorry, but I have to say go Hawks.
Okay. And then I'll just say go Blue.
Okay. Fair.
Okay. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.